So this seems like a ho-hum play. Curry turns and fires, the defender contests a little too closely, and the ref calls the foul.
Curry a heave from three.
Notice how Curry is smiling, so is head coach Steve Kerr. We even get a little shimmy after the free throw. Why are they all so happy? Well, because for most of Curry's career, he simply did not get many of these calls. And this season is about to be radically different. I've never really weighed in about this before, despite tons of evidence posted each season showing ever-increasing amounts of contact on Steph's threes with no whistle. And I gotta be honest with you, I never quite knew what to make of it. Sometimes he'll flail, and I'm sure the refs think he's trying to initiate contact, so they won't call it. But I truly think most of these are Curry trying to avoid landing on the defender's feet, considering his career was almost derailed entirely by ankle issues. But this past postseason against the Rockets turned into something else. You see, there's been a rule in the NBA for a while that allows contact of the shooter's hand if the ball has already been released.
Because this contact was incidental and it occurred after the release of the shot, no foul would be assessed on this play.
They called it the high five rule, and it made sense at the time since the three-point shot was becoming such a huge weapon that the defense needed something to help it along. Here's the video from the official NBA referees account explaining what legal contact to a shooter's hand, wrist, or arm looks like when contesting with the high five rule.
Najee makes a competitive play at the point of release. He does not commit any secondary movements, and the contact to the shooter's hand is incidental. Again, this is a legal play, and no foul should be called on a play such as this.
And sure enough, Curry has already gotten this call 3 times in the preseason, leading to 7 free throws since, he actually made one of these. And I think it's about time that they made this adjustment. The Warriors announcers have good insights into what will be different this year and how it might affect Curry's game in a good way.
That is the new kind of high-five foul. They're not letting you whack the shooter's hand after the release this year.
The extra swipe there, the secondary motion, it's a little too much. The officials are looking to protect the shooters a little more. Steph is saying, great news, finally.
He may set the record for 4-point plays this year.
What defenders had started to do was use the high five rule to their advantage by being more and more aggressive with trying to make contact with the shooting hand after the release. But we know that even though the ball was out of the shooter's hand, overt swipes and contact like this can certainly affect the shot and the shooter's follow-through, creating an unfair advantage. And the Rockets' recklessness on some of these contests could have been considered dangerous to Steph's health. It doesn't take much to whack a finger or a wrist and cause an injury. And once that happens, being successful on long-distance shots becomes much harder, if not impossible. And for someone who relies so much on the three-point shot, this type of defense had gone too far. It was clear to me in this series that the Rockets felt they identified a loophole in the rules and were trying to exploit it. Dillon Brooks was the chief culprit as he swipes forcefully at his hand with no fear of a foul whether he makes contact or not. In contrast, here's Tari Eason contesting a three by holding his arm straight up the entire time, making what will still be legal contact with Curry's hand because there's no secondary motion. It must feel impossible to guard this guy no matter what you do, but the mental aspect of shooting is so profound that constant contact to his hand, wrist, or arm after the release can have a toll. As you see in the Rockets series, Steph did see a significant dip in three-point percentage in games 4 and 5, with Dillon Brooks adding what would be an illegal secondary motion to his contest if he makes contact, but you can't keep Curry down for too long. But if I were a defensive coach game planning against him, you certainly have to begin with stressing the contest. You must get a hand up and interrupt his field of vision by any means necessary. And if you can keep your hand up and time it just right, so that contact is made right as the ball is leaving his hand, you can still profoundly affect the follow-through and influence the miss. The key is that it's what I'd call a soft contest, with little chance of injuring the shooter's fingers or wrist, and that is always a big concern when the league crafts its rules. The only reason this even became a thing is when NBA teams started tracking defensive stats 15 years ago and discovered that the best way to influence a miss by a three-point shooter is to leave your feet and contest the shot in the air. No longer was the choppy step, hands-eye closeout effective against professional shooters. But it's not like we've seen an overall dip in three-point percentage because of it. So I'm not sure I could win the argument about in-air contesting of shots, but I know I could win money by playing Prize Picks, the best way to play daily fantasy for tons of sports. Coming up this week, Prize Picks has got a special max discount live on the board right now. If Steph Curry scores more than half a point against the Lakers on opening night, you win. It's a no-brainer, so get over there and build your lineup today. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Jared Goff's pass yards, completions, and fantasy score? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Follow me on the app so you can just copy my lineups, something you'll benefit from during basketball season. Best of all, download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And the league is certainly right to have adjusted this rule to protect the shooter a little bit more. While Steph certainly needed something to be done about the secondary motion, we've seen this called a number of times in the preseason already, alerting the players before the games count to what will be tolerated. Buzelis adds the slightest secondary motion to this contest, and he looks confused about the call, wanting a kick out on Cam Johnson, but there's no contact down low, so let's hope he gets the memo. Okongwu takes an overt swipe at the shooter, which he might have gotten away with last year, but no longer, as this one was an easy call and could have hurt the shooter's hand. And the Hawks coaching staff needs to have a meeting with the players to get them to stop these swipes after the release, or else deal with giving up tons of free throws. This play was interesting because in real time, it doesn't appear there was any secondary motion to create contact to the non-shooting wrist, but looking at it in slow motion, you can see a little extra movement with McDaniels' left arm accelerating slightly into the contact. And it doesn't matter which hand they connect with, it can still be deemed a foul. Keontae George got called for this play against the Mavericks, and this is one where I'm not quite sure why it was called, since there was no secondary movement to create contact with the hand. Perhaps the movement of the wrist made it seem like there was something extra, but you can see that George is confused by the call, and the ref is explaining the contact of the shooting hand. So I expect some ironing out of the wrinkles will happen as the season starts, and everyone gets on the same page. Lastly, here's one they called on Zach LaVine without any secondary motion either, but there is a degree of force into the contact with the shooting hand. So it seems like this one will be the most confusing to the players, as I suspect it won't be called in the name of the high five rule normally. I think this is a great solution since shooters need to be able to know they can release these shots without fear of injury. And if it protects Steph a little bit more than what we've been accustomed to his entire career, then it will be righting a wrong that had persisted for way too long, but also might unleash a new Steph Curry, one that gets a lot more free points at the charity stripe, so I'd expect a big bump in his scoring average.